Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm here to talk to you about one of my absolute most favorite topics, self-care. And I know usually there's two responses when I say self-care. Either people groan because they know it's about to come, or they're very kind of curious because they've never heard of this idea. And self-care is really putting yourself first and taking care of yourself, which is undoubtedly very hard, I'd say, for most of us to do in this world. And self-care isn't something traditional. It doesn't have to be something in the traditional sense when we think about the idea of spoiling ourselves or taking care of ourselves, like a massage or a vacation or pedicure, those kinds of things. Because quite frankly, some of us don't have the time, we don't have energy, and we don't have the financial means to do those kinds of things. And certainly in a time of COVID, we're really limited in what we can do. But self-care can be something small and simple. Something as simple as laughing with a friend that can be so rejuvenating and exactly what you need. If you've ever traveled on an airplane, there's a reason why they say to you and go through those instructions is if there unfortunately is an accident, your responsibility, the first thing you're supposed to do is put on that mask of oxygen. And the reason for that is you need to take care of yourself before you start to take care of other people, or you can take care of other people. And that's no different in life. We need to learn to take care of ourselves so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. We can be the best mother, father, partner, friend, employee. It's our responsibility to do that. Our kids often, or my kids were taught when they were in kindergarten, if you have children or grandchildren, you might have heard this concept too called bucket filling. But the whole idea is we walk around with these big kind of imaginary buckets on our chest, and we spend all day long giving and giving and giving. And imagine if you have a bucket that people are taking from, at the end of the day, typically you don't have anything left to give. And I know when my bucket is empty, I am grumpy, I am angry, a lot more irritable, and I certainly just want to go to bed and be left alone. We all show that in a different way. So our responsibility or job is to find ways to fill up our buckets so that we can be able to give to others the next day. That's self-care. So if this is a new idea for you, it's okay. And if you're struggling right now to think of what are some ideas of things that I can do to start taking care of myself, I'm going to introduce you to some of my colleagues at our family health team who are going to share with you some ideas or things that they do to push themselves forward, to rejuvenate themselves and to take care of themselves.
Sometimes for me, self-care means simply saying no to things that I don't have the time for, saying no to tasks that I may just not have the capacity to take on at the time, or even just saying no to conversations or spending time with people that I just don't have the energy for. So knowing when something's not going to make me happy and may actually make me feel worse or even more stressed, and just being able to tell myself that I can't take this on right now, or it's okay to say no to this invite. It's okay to not answer this phone call right now because I've had enough socializing for one day. It's something that has taken a lot of practice for me, but I found that, in this overwhelming world that we live in, one of the best ways that you can take care of yourself is by giving yourself permission to say no without any sort of guilt or any judgment, and just putting yourself first.
During this time of COVID-19, I have found it is extremely important for me to maintain self-care. The ways that I self-care include spending time with my dog, spending time with my family, and gardening.
I'm Lynn Davies, CEO of the Couchiching Family Health Team. Self-care for me is going out every single day, getting fresh air, walking my dogs, and just turning work off.
Some of the ways that I participate in self-care is by adding in daily walks to my routine and making sure that I do family board games.
For self-care that's a lot of fun, I've been mountain biking.
When it comes to self-care, some of the things that I enjoy doing are spending time outside, whether it be hiking, biking, walking, spending time with my pets, playing or listening to music, doing artwork. When I do these sorts of things, I like to do so in a really present, focused, and mindful way.
I'd like to share some of the things I do for self-care. I smudge. I meditate. I go for walks every day. I like to enjoy the beauty of nature. And I'm sure to stay in touch with family and friends, even though I can't be physically close.
The first thing I would like to say is that this pandemic has challenged all of us. And it doesn't matter that I am a mental health clinician by training, I still have to work at it to make sure that I am looking after my needs. One thing I have noticed during COVID-19 is that I've really had to step up my self-care game. So in the past, where walking a few times a week with my dogs, maybe doing a little bit of quilting on the weekend, where that was enough in the past, I've found during COVID that it's not cutting it anymore. And even though we're able to work from home and still get our jobs done, I found that I actually had to pull out more stops. So for me, I've noticed that one of the most important things that I can do is to get outside every day. It's easy when you're working from home to be in the house, in almost the same room all day long. And I find that at the end of the day, if I don't get out and just get some fresh air, a walk with the dogs, a bike ride, now that the weather's nice, if I don't get out every day, I notice it by the end of the day and my mood suffers. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I've started to do is to combine self-care activities. Used to be that I would work on a jigsaw puzzle, something like that, and that would be enough to distract me. Now it's not quite enough. Now I've noticed that I feel better if I'm working on a puzzle when I have some of my favorite music playing. I've done things like this to try to step things up to make sure that I'm going to be okay and keep my stress level low during this pandemic.
Hello, what I like to do for self-care is I really try and take time to sit in the moment I'm enjoying and take a deep breath. I find that I can recognize that I'm in a mindful self-care moment, but I'm not always present with it. I can plan to do self-care and then not really do it. And so when I'm sitting there and I'm by the water, one of my favorite things, I just sit, I take a deep breath and say, notice mindfully that I'm really here, I'm really present, and I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And sometimes self-care can look like something more on the fly, getting hugs from my bubble, formerly known as my family, partner and kids. So that's really important to me for self-care, and I like a nice cup of tea.
To practice self-care, I like to be outside in nature, enjoying the sunshine. So whether that's being at the beach or hiking our local trails, camping with my family, or planting my vegetable garden on our farm, I feel the most grounded and get re-energized from being outside. And if I can't engage in those activities, I like to at least do something small every day that brings me some sort of joy or pleasure and that gives me a break from my everyday responsibilities. So that might be just a kitchen dance party with my kids, taking a nap, enjoying a good meal. Those are the things that bring me joy. So I try to incorporate those in my everyday.
Maintaining hope is easy for me because I know there's a smart Canadian scientist or doctor who's going to find the cure for this, and we're going to cure the world.
I also maintain hope by watching Some Good News by John Krasinski, and also watching random acts of kindness that are going on around the world.
The way that I try to maintain hope during this uncertainty is by still finding things funny when I can, such as the fact that we're on take, I think, 12 or 13, my partner might say at this point, and is fairly annoyed, but laughing is one of the ways that I stay on top of my health.
I think for me, the best way I can maintain hope is by really monitoring what I look at online, in the news, that sort of thing, on social media. It is so easy during COVID to get inundated with bad news stories, with horrific tales, especially from around the world. I have had, for me, to limit that to only those more positive, hopeful stories. And I find that when I do that and focus my attention on that, I end up feeling a lot less stressed by the end of the day.
And what gives me hope? Well, I mean, there's personal things that give me hope, which is my faith, my experiences, things that help guide me, that are really important to me. But also, I believe, there's something useful in kind of accepting the reality of the situation, good or bad. I mean, it's very rare in the world that all of us are feeling the same thing. And although our circumstances are very varied and different, I think we've all been affected by COVID-19. So there's really something in that common humanity piece that I think is quite helpful that we don't often get in traversing difficult situations. So maybe there's a piece of this that, although we're not experiencing it the same, we are all experiencing something. So that, I think, is also hopeful in that we don't have to feel like we're doing this alone.
Finding excitement within change and thinking about all the possibilities or opportunities is just one thing I do to maintain hope.
What gives me hope for the future is when I see many beautiful examples of people working together and helping each other.
As far as remaining hopeful, and what helps me do that is focusing on the everyday and trying not to worry so much about tomorrow or 3 months from now or 6 months from now, because I think especially right now things can feel quite overwhelming, and so remaining present and sort of mindful and trying to enjoy the everyday definitely helps me. Practicing gratitude and focusing on the things that I do have and the things that I am grateful for and the things that do make me happy. But also sort of looking back at my life and thinking about the times where things were difficult and I had obstacles to overcome, and reminding myself that I've been able to overcome those things and that I have strengths and capacity within me to get through those tough times, and that generally difficult times like the ones that we're living in today don't last forever, and that helps bring some hope to my life, having that faith that this too shall pass.
So those are my tips and tricks. I hope you are all coping well during COVID and staying strong.
Take care.
Stay hopeful.
May you all stay well. Thank you for listening.